What's up, Barnhill family, and welcome back to your home for all things combat sports.
Yo.
Guys, today we're going to break down the BMF title fight that just happened last night. Max Holloway successfully defending the BMF belt, a title that has been extremely hard thus far to defend, and Dustin Poirier riding off into the sunset. We're going to talk about the fight itself, break it down technically, talk about Dustin's beautiful retirement fight in Louisiana, and as well talk about what might be next for Max Holloway and the BMF. So Nick, let's get right into the technical aspect of this fight, because we saw 25 minutes of what was an absolute war.
Right.
And it was a great fight that each guy had their moments, right? When you think about people's retirement fights, usually it's kind of sad, right?
Yeah.
They're usually on like a 4 or 5 fight losing streak. The UFC's like, man, you really want to do another one? Okay, I guess we'll give you a retirement fight. We'll try to put you on the prelims or something like that. Get the B-roll ready. No, this whole card was built around Dustin Poirier, all the way down to the fact that it happened in Louisiana.
Right.
You had Lil Wayne walk him out. Like, it was a really special night. But then the fight delivered itself. And we always talk about the X's and O's of a fight. And to me, there's a lot of great things that we're seeing out of Max at 155, and I'm so happy he's ending his career at that weight class.
Oh, me too. And Max looked really, really good. But we have to say, even in a retirement fight, Dustin Poirier looked great out there.
Yeah.
I mean, he went the distance, and even though there were some shaky moments, especially early in the fight, he was able to find his footing, get back in there, and make it competitive. Now, Max Holloway, this whole fight week, to me, looked like the kind of guy who's like, yeah, I'm here. I'm a friendly guy. I'm a company man. I'll do this. I'll oblige with a retirement fight, but my sights are set on getting that title again. I'm looking at undisputed. I'm looking at Ilia Topuria. He beat me. I want to get back in there. And Dustin was looking like, you know what, let me take every last second of this in, enjoy every bit. But we still got an actual war. We got a real BMF fight against between these two guys. So what I want to talk about is the X's and O's from early on, because we knew this fight was going to be a stand-up fight, primarily boxing, but Max came out and really did show a full gamut of MMA. And while Dustin was not exactly throwing as many kicks and not trying to mix the martial arts quite as well, he was actually finding some pretty good success with his hands. And that was causing Max Holloway to open things up a little bit more, maybe utilize a little bit more of that speed. And that was the biggest difference, in my opinion, the whole fight, is Max Holloway's speed. He still has the power, the speed from 145, and he brings it up to 155. I know that he's not quite the same as Ilia Topuria in the fact that the power doesn't quite translate to 155, but he was able to drop Dustin a couple times. He was able to do a lot of damage, and the most important thing is he gave the crowd and the fans exactly what they wanted to see. I am not convinced that Max Holloway couldn't have ended the fight in round 1. I'm not convinced he couldn't have gotten Dustin Poirier out of there early, about 2 minutes into the first round. Now, when we saw him follow up and go to the ground, it looked to me like he was sparing a couple of shots, a couple devastating shots that could have maybe flattened Dustin out or ended the night early. But at the same time, Dustin's a veteran, Max is a veteran. So I was thinking, all right, I don't think he's just like trying to carry this fight and continue. Dustin doesn't need that, and the fans don't really want that. But I think now that I'm, going back and I, watched that moment again, I think he realized, okay, I might have him. He might be on the way out, but he also might not. And if he isn't, then I don't want to blow all of my energy and then wind up losing this BMF belt to Dustin Poirier in his retirement. So I thought it was actually a pretty smart move of Max Holloway to ease up a little bit in that first round, even though I thought the fight could end there. And of course, once we settled in, Dustin Poirier got a little blood dripping down his face. He started sweating a little bit and then also started landing on Max. Then we started to see a nice back and forth. We saw even rounds, even though Max Holloway was starting to run away with the fight. And then I'd say round by round, he won every round except for one. Dustin was still absolutely making the rounds competitive. And all the way up until the very end, Max Holloway was trying to at least give the crowd a competitive fight. And I will say this, Max Holloway has always been one of my favorite guys, but as his career continues, he is just becoming more and more of one of my favorite fighters the UFC's ever had. You got to think about the kind of human he is, right? So obviously, if you need a big fight, if you need a big event, if you need a killer on a card, you put Max Holloway in there. But this was one of those moments where we needed somebody to show a little bit of grace. You've done a lot for the sport. Dustin's done a lot for the sport. You guys like each other, ton of respect. But let's go out there and give the fans what they want to see. Max went out there and delivered. He showed the fans, all right, I'm going to give you the fight you want. We're going to go all five rounds. And in the very last 10 seconds, we're going to point to the center of the octagon and go. But I will say that last 10 seconds really was the telltale sign for me that Dustin Poirier is retired. When Max Holloway pointed to the ground and started throwing punches, the first 4 or 5 he threw were straight to the body, and he had his chin all the way up and his head completely open to be hit. Dustin Poirier wasn't really looking to engage in that situation, which I was a little surprised by. But when he tied up and looked to just end the last 3 or 4 seconds tied up rather than trading leather with Max, I go, okay, I actually don't think Dustin Poirier will ever come back. I do believe this is a retirement. He's going to go get juicy now. He's going to probably become about a middleweight as far as the weight is concerned. But I thought the fight, start to finish, was epic. I thought the entire card was awesome. And Dustin Poirier deserves a good retirement. But I'm also very happy Max Holloway won, got to keep the belt. And according to the BMF champ, that BMF belt is staying in rotation. He wants to defend it in his next fight, and he definitely wants to get another shot at Ilia Topuria. So I say we keep the BMF, and we figure out where Max Holloway fits in the 155 division.
Yeah, well, as far as retirements go, it really doesn't get any better than it did for Dustin Poirier. Right. You know, it's almost too good to retire winning a belt. And I know the BMF belt's not undisputed. It's not the belt that Dustin wanted his whole career.
Right.
But let's face it, you talk Tony Ferguson, BJ Penn, you can go down the list of guys that retired a little bit too late, and even guys that didn't push it to those extremes, generally in their careers on the undercard of a fight night or even a pay-per-view event, depending on how big they were, in a city that's not their own. Dustin Poirier, to get in there, because Max Holloway, let's be honest, is a top 5 guy at 155 after that performance last night. Clearly, I think Dustin was number 6 coming in. Max should be 4 or 5 in the rankings come Tuesday morning. So to go in there and have a war and actually knock down and have some success with a top 5 guy who's an all-time great as well, by the way, in the 145 division, and go out on that type of performance is really as good as you can hope for in a career. And I'm happy that happened for Dustin Poirier. Loved the way Max handled the mic afterwards. He did a very quick call out, said he's coming back for Ilia Topuria. Anybody that wants the BMF smoke at 155 can get it, but I'm not taking too much time. This is Dustin's night. Max is a class act. He's one of my favorite fighters of all time, and it's because of what he does in the cage. It's the way he handles himself in the interviews afterwards. It's the family man that he is outside of the cage. Max Holloway is one of the good guys.
For sure.
Talking about the technical perspective of what he did in the fight, durability was the biggest question coming into this fight for Max Holloway because we just saw him get knocked out for the first time. So a lot of people thought, okay, too much, too soon. Dustin's very heavy-handed. Dustin has knocked out quite a few people in the trail that he's left behind him in his long and very distinguished UFC career.
Right, and as they say, the last thing to go is the power, right?
Exactly, and Max even talked about it. It shows you how much of a technician Max is. Dustin Poirier is left-handed, but he fights out of orthodox for a lot of the time that he's in the cage. So he's got his power hand in front, and Max said he throws some really good off-time hooks. Mm-hmm. His jab is very hard to deal with because he's throwing it with his power hand. Like, Max really got into a little bit about how he dissected this fight and him and his team prepared for it. So it shows you how good technically Max actually is. Dustin Poirier, I think he will be remembered as being one of everybody's favorite fighters by the time, when you never really know what you're watching until it's over.
Right.
But this was one of those ones where it was like, yes, we all love Dustin Poirier. Yes, we had the Conor trilogy. Yeah, he came up short a few times in title fights, but he made all of those fights interesting. He beat some really good names. He was in some wars. But when we really look back 5 years from now, we will cherish the career that was the Dustin the Diamond Poirier for years to come. But all of that said, that's in the past now.
Guys, a quick break in the action before we get back to the show. We were looking and we noticed that most of you guys are still not subscribed to the channel. If you are enjoying the content and you feel so inclined, please subscribe, like the video, share it with somebody, and drop your comments if you have something to say. We appreciate every single one of you. Now let's get back into the show.
What happens with Max Holloway going forward?
Right.
Obviously, he wants to defend the BMF belt. He said, look, this belt is active. Mm-hmm. It's fun to watch me contend for it. It's very hard to defend. There's never been a boring BMF fight. And to me, when I look at the landscape of 155, there's two people that kind of pop up in my head that would be great fights that could be potentially next for Max Holloway.
Okay.
The first one is Paddy the Baddy. So first question on Paddy the Baddy, is he BMF worthy? Not really yet at this point in his career. He's a lot of fun to watch. He's very game. He's got a chin on him. But I wouldn't be enthralled to see Paddy Pimblett thrown into a BMF title fight. And I think Paddy's got business with Arman. We're hearing a lot of discussion about Justin Gaethje contending for the belt next against Ilia Topuria, which I'm perfectly fine with. So if we get Paddy versus Arman and we get Gaethje versus Ilia, who does that leave for Max at 155? Because we have to have some fun with Max at the end of his career here, right? Max is coming to finish out his career at 155. Let's not spoil it. Let's not blow this opportunity.
Right.
One name keeps popping up to me.
Come on.
Charles do Bronx Oliveira.
That's it.
Charles is never fighting for a title again.
No.
Anybody in the world that watches MMA that says that Charles do Bronx Oliveira is not worthy of a BMF title fight obviously doesn't know what they're talking about.
They've gone mad.
They've gone nuts. And there's some things that need to shake out at the top of 155 before Max is really in a title fight.
Right.
Who is Ilia fighting? Is it Justin Gaethje? When, if ever, is Islam coming back down? What happens with Arman? All of those things need to be answered, and I think they all will be answered within a year. So if you put Max back in there 6 months from now against do Bronx for the BMF title, that could actually headline a pay-per-view.
For sure.
Max made Charles quit at one point in his career, and Charles, that was kind of his MO at 145, but he completely rebranded himself when he came up to lightweight. So I think giving him that opportunity again is the perfect next step for Max Holloway at 155. Let what needs to shake out at the top shake out. Go fight Charles. It's a very favorable matchup for him. You've already beaten him once. It's a really fun fight. The fans will all get behind it. And then you can talk about putting yourself in position for a title fight with whoever might be holding it at the time. Probably still Ilia, but who knows?
Yeah, I love the idea of Charles fighting Max for the BMF, and it makes the most sense. I believe you're also on track with Justin Gaethje getting the next title shot. I think Ilia versus Justin happens at the end of this year. I think we have a title eliminator, Paddy versus Arman. Winner gets the title shot, likely against Ilia.
Maybe even on the same card.
Potentially on the same card. And then we have the BMF, Charles versus Max. And that is a little bit unfortunate if Max were to go out there and beat Charles, because I don't think he gets a title shot immediately off of that, just because of what Charles has done recently. But I think that sets him up perfectly to get into a title eliminator, regardless of who that is against. But I want to just mention what you said about the BMF and Paddy's place in there. Scousers don't get knocked out. He's very exciting, very fun, and I have no doubt Paddy the Baddy will become a BMF candidate. And as far as Max is concerned, he actually wants rankings for the BMF now. He goes, I'm the BMF, but I want to see some rankings, maybe a top 5 or a top 10.
Now, that would be cool because you could do it in different weight classes.
Right.
Like, you don't have to be in a certain weight class to be ranked for BMF contention.
Right. I think that'd be actually very interesting. So I just look at it right now as if there's a round table of BMFs, right? We've got Max Holloway sitting there. We've got Justin Gaethje, Jorge Masvidal, Nate Diaz, Ilia Topuria should be there. If we put Paddy the Baddy at that table, maybe he belongs there, but I feel like he might get the side eye from all those guys. Like, yeah, you're not quite in this sort of company. You're not in this rare air. So right now, I don't think Paddy is in line for a BMF.
It's like you're in the fraternity, but you're still pledging, bro. Like,
exactly.
Take it easy for a second.
We got to haze you a little bit before we let you in. But I do think that what you said, you laid it out perfectly. I believe the matchmaking is going to be spot on. I think we got Ilia Topuria is going to fight Justin Gaethje. Arman's going to fight Paddy the Baddy. That's the title eliminator. And I believe the next BMF is going to be Charles Oliveira versus Max Holloway. But that fight is going to mean something. The winner will fight in a title eliminator if the winner is Max. I don't think Charles Oliveira finds himself in another title fight, but I think the BMF is a meaningful enough belt to put it on the line. And when you've got guys like Max Holloway who time and time again give the fans exactly what they want, Charles Oliveira, you can say the exact same thing for him. It makes the most sense. And one thing I want to say, UFC 318 just happened. The only belt that was on the line was the BMF belt. So if you go and look at the rankings, right? 25 just had their fight. Pantoja just fought. Merab just fought not that long ago. You look at 45, Volkanovski didn't have a fight all that long ago. 55, we understand that what happened there not too long ago, about a month ago?
Yeah.
70 has Islam and JDM coming up. 85 next month, the pay-per-view main event. 205 they've got a little bit of stuff going on towards the end of the year. And then heavyweight is a disaster. We don't know when they're fighting. Likely on the White House lawn will be the next title. But the only belt up for grabs potentially in this month of July that we're in was the BMF. And for me, that makes a lot of sense. We don't have endless amounts of weight classes, and that's why I'm a fan of keeping the BMF in rotation. I think we keep it around, and in case you have a month or a span of time where you don't have a title that can be contested for, you can still give the fans a pay-per-view worthy card. Obviously, the BMF always has an amazing fight attached to it. So let's just keep the BMF going in case we run into these dry spells like we just did in July, where there's no champions in any weight class ready to defend, but we have a pay-per-view we need to sell and we need to promote for the yearly schedule of the UFC's pay-per-view model.
Yeah.
So I think it makes the most sense. And honestly, if we get a ranking system with the BMF, that will open the whole thing up, because I'm with you. I think they'd bring in probably 10 to 15 guys across between 135 and 185 and just sort of throw the biggest, best BMF names or the most worthy BMF names in there and see what happens. Just let it sort of move around. If it winds up moving up north and then gets all the way to Derek Lewis, I don't think anybody would say he's not a BMF. But at the same time, if it keeps moving down, and somebody like Peter Yan were to wind up with it, I also don't think people would be saying, oh, he's not a BMF. So I'm a fan of it. I thought the entire card was awesome. But yeah, I think Max Holloway should be considered a world champion, and he should keep defending that BMF belt.
Yeah, and I think with the BMF, you should only be able to contest for it if it's within one weight class of you.
I hear that.
So Max has got it at 55, so a 45er could contest for it, or a 70er could contest for it.
I like that.
And then that's the way it can kind of interchange between weight classes. But one more point I want to make on the BMF belt. If Max Holloway ends back up in a title fight against Ilia Topuria, it will be criminal if the BMF belt is not also on the line.
Right.
It was not on the line the first time, and a lot of people said, well, Ilia hasn't really done enough to prove that he's a BMF. Since then, Ilia has left a wake of unconscious fighters that just so happen to be some of the best of all time and everybody's favorite fighters. So Ilia Topuria is absolutely at the table for BMF contention now. Oh, yeah. The guy deserves, if Max Holloway, and that is maybe the carrot that gets Max back in there, because when you get knocked out by somebody in the second round and there's a whole weight class of really good opposition, it's hard to just say, okay, yeah, give this guy another chance. I knocked him out in less than 10 minutes, but let him go again. But if there's something that sweetens the pot, like a BMF belt, I think it would make Ilia more enticed to do it. I think it would be a bigger fight for the UFC. So it absolutely, if Ilia and Max get back in there for a title, and Max is still the BMF holder at that time, which I think would probably be a requirement, because if he loses the BMF, that means he lost a fight. He's probably not in contention for Ilia, that you would have to put that belt up as well.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think Ilia's at this point where he just wants to steal everybody's belt, regardless of weight class and regardless of what the three letters on the front of it say. I think he wants that BMF belt. And even though it wasn't up for contention whenever they fought last, that fight still felt like there was a BMF on the line. And whether you think Ilia has earned the right, I'm of the opposite mind. I think that maybe Paddy hasn't earned his right, but Ilia Topuria is finishing everybody's favorite fighter, and most of them have a BMF history, right? They've been in the BMF fight. So I think Ilia Topuria absolutely is a BMF, and the only thing that's more BMF than his performances in the cage is the fact that he didn't even complain about not getting the belt. He's fine with it. All right, yeah, I'd like to have it, but it wasn't up for grabs, no problem. I would be live tweeting last night while the UFC's happening, like, hey, I hope my belt's having fun in New Orleans. That's how I would be doing it. Ilia's all class. He's not going to say anything like that. But I do think he's a what do you call it? The people that hunt for gold. He's a gold miner. He wants to get some belts. He wants to steal everything from everybody. And if Max Holloway can bring some hardware into a title fight, I think Ilia would be more than happy to put his belt on the line, winner takes all, and we'd get a very good BMF undisputed match title fight.
Yeah, and one more thing, too. What was up with the fight of the night last night? Because, I mean, I saw a nice clip on Instagram of Dustin and Max talking backstage after the fight.
Yeah.
And Max was like, what's up, bro? We didn't even win the BMF. We didn't even win the fight of the night.
Right.
And Dustin was like, are you serious? And so, like, it's so funny to see that, like, even after retirement, he's still competitive. He still wanted that fight of the night spot. Yeah. So there was that. I mean, Vettori and Allen was a good fight. Don't get me wrong. But the main event was spectacular. But what about Kevin Holland and D-Rod?
Insane.
I mean, those guys, both of them had the other one damn near finished on multiple occasions.
Yeah.
That, to me, was your fight of the night.
100%.
I can't believe that the UFC did not give D-Rod versus Kevin Holland the fight of the night honors. Now, I think Dana said in the post-fight press conference that those guys are going to be very happy, were the exact words that he used. So I take that to mean that he's going to also bonus them out something. But come on now, Vettori and Allen was a good fight, but there were 2 fights on that card that were better than Vettori and Allen, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think the bonus man probably had a tough time last night because the first 6 or 7 fights ended in finishes. So they're like, all right, we're going to have a performance, the performance of the night bonus is up for grabs for anybody. And then the fight for me, of course, I had Kevin and D-Rod. Kevin's a friend, but also that fight was the most entertaining, the most back and forth, the most competitive. And like you said, it depends on who the ref is, because if there was a ref who's a little bit more gun shy or a little bit less experienced, he probably would have stopped D-Rod at one point in that fight from hurting Kevin, but he also probably would have stopped Kevin from hurting D-Rod. So this fight was really great. I think the ref did a good job in keeping the fight going as long as it needed to go, right? There were a couple moments where it looked like Kevin could have been stopped in there, but he was able to maintain, a decent guard and stay pretty active from the bottom. I thought that was pretty good. D-Rod also, it became a knockdown, drag-out war. And then when you're taking things like just grit and putting those as the priority over things like technique, that's when you're just going to get a wild fight. And I'm with you, I'm sure those guys got their $50K bonus. I don't think that Dana slighted them, gave them $25K. I think it was a $50K bonus. He probably doled out several of those. But when you're talking about the most competitive fighters in the world, they want the accolade. They want, I got the finish. I got the best performance. I had the best fight of the night. It's like Justin Gaethje. One of the most impressive stats ever is Justin Gaethje's bonus collection, right? Yeah. I think he has, in its first 7 fights in the UFC, he had 9 bonuses.
That's insane.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing we're talking about. And I think Kevin Holland and D-Rod deserved to get the fight of the night. But honestly, Vettori versus Allen was also a very competitive fight, very fun. And you feel bad, too, because both of them have, tough things going on with their brothers. One lost their brother. The other one's in, it seems like, tough conditions. So you feel emotionally for both guys when they're in there fighting, but they gave us one heck of a war, and I thought that was a great fight.
Yeah, and congrats again to Dustin the Diamond Poirier. Thanks for the memories. I mean, what else can you say? The guy's a legend. I'm going to miss him, but I'm going to still be following whatever he does after this.
And I hate to say this, but he's 36. Will he ever come back?
No.